Vonnie, you have a story. You have probably three or four stories inside of a story. I'd like for you to tell me about the day that you had to tell your children that their father had passed away.
That's going to bring tears to my eyes. Very difficult. One of the most difficult things I had to do. And Rob was in the hospital for 4 days. Didn't allow the kids to go see him. I didn't want them to have the last memory of their dad in the hospital. So I did kind of set the preface that he probably was not going to come back home. And when he did pass, and I did go home and tell the kids, it was very difficult. But kids are kids, and they rallied really well. And we spent a lot of time remembering him and the funny things, and we actually were laughing, remembering some of the things that he did. But something really special happened that day. And I think it shows that there's so much more to what we see. When he was in the hospital, he looked cold, and I said to the chaplain, let's get him a blanket. I'm going to bring him a blanket from home. The chaplain came back with a blanket with hot air balloons, red hot air balloons on it. And I placed it on Rob, and I said, Rob, when you get better, we're going to do something we haven't done, and that's go on a hot air balloon ride. So I spent some time with the kids, and I wanted to get outside for some fresh air, and so I called my neighbor and asked her to go for a walk. And when I hung up the phone and I turned around on this cold November day, dark, there was a red hot air balloon in the sky. That brought me so much peace, because I knew that one of the last things that I said to him was, when you get better, we'll go on this hot air balloon ride. And for me, I knew he was better, and I knew he was in a better place. It has taken me a long time to get in a better place, and I use this word all of the time, is acceptance. If we don't accept our situations, if I don't accept that Rob took his own life, that he died by suicide, that he was suffering from an illness, I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to carry it, and I'm going to be brought down. And then that's going to lead me to turn to maybe some other things that may be negative, like alcohol or drugs, to relieve the pain. So when you hear the word suicide, it's very scary, it's very dark, and oftentimes very unexplainable. It was scary to me too, because I had never gone through it. I never thought I would have to go through it, and I didn't understand it. And it took me a long time to be able to say the word suicide. Suicide is defined in the dictionary as someone who intentionally kills themselves. That may be true, but I look at suicide as a different definition. Today, if I am asked how Rob died, I say he died of depression, because depression was his illness. Suicide is a side effect of that illness. When we look at one saying they killed themselves, that's so harsh, and so people don't want to talk about that. I didn't want to talk about that. But I think that, like all illnesses, we also have to understand that some illnesses are terminal. And sometimes what appears to be a choice is the illness, and the illness that has become terminal. I understand came about because I had very important people in my life and in my kids' life who didn't understand. I found that denial is an easy place for people to be. It's safe. I was watching friends, I was watching family, maybe self-medicate, maybe suffering themselves, but they couldn't talk about it. And I became scary to them because I wasn't an enabler. I wasn't going to live in denial. And I spoke. And that scared people. So I would lay in bed at night and I would go, why don't they understand? Why don't they understand? So I thought I can make a difference. I can make these shirts, and by simply wearing a t-shirt, get talking, get people asking questions. What does that mean? Because for a long time, I had a friend say, Vonnie, you're an army of one. And once I started that I understand, immediately I had troops behind me. Most of these people I didn't know, but most of them resonate with my story and losing a husband or a child and knowing what that fear is and knowing the misunderstanding that comes with it. But finally, here's this little group on Facebook that support each other and says, I know that feeling. And huge healing began, and healing began that I didn't even know places I needed to heal. There's a lot of stigma and a lot of judgment, and the stigma comes from ignorance. The stigma comes from not being educated. The stigma goes back to it's scary, it's dark, we're not going to talk about this because how could this person do that to your family? And when you have never been there, you don't get it. And I'm just as guilty as others before I had this affect me with somebody who I love very much. So I'm sure I thought the same things. I don't want to go there. And I probably do the same thing with cancer because cancer's unknown to me and my family. And I kind of want to stay away from it because I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it to affect me because I know the horrible effects that it has. Many stories from people online, all on this little Facebook page that share with me personally on private message, and many that share, in a post. But I have one that really sticks out to me because it was one person that touched a couple hundred people. A friend who is a good friend who I met because of I Understand, because she believed so passionately in what we were doing, because she had struggles within her own family, but also her husband's business had 2 suicides within 2 weeks of family members. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to handle it. And she reached out to me and she said, Vonnie, what can we do? And I said, you know what? Let's put t-shirts on the table. How many do you need? We started with 100, and they took 100 and they were scooped up, snapped up the card. The appreciation that this couple and that they got from their business was overwhelming. And to me, that showed one person and one day touched over 200 people that needed a resource and needed comfort, that there are people that care. There are people that understand, and there are people that aren't going to judge what our family within this business has just gone through. I think that if we can work as a community in the medical field by bringing I Understand into offices, into treatment centers, into places where people are struggling, or people that are struggling, or people that have lost. This brings comfort to them because you don't get the t-shirt, you get a card that tells you, reminds you that, suicide is effective in illness. Suicide doesn't make a person weak. If I were to say to somebody that's going through the loss of a loved one by suicide or struggling with a mental health issue, when I lost Rob, people would say, just give it a year. Time will heal. You just need time. Well, I'm telling you, after that year, it almost was worse because I really was waiting for something magical to happen. That magic didn't happen because I was still grieving, I was still in pain, and the time was still clicking. But what I came to realize is that time does not heal, love heals.